Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the day I met Big Time Rush on Thursday, June 13th, 2013. My friend came over. My friend Caitlin came over at 12:45 or at 12, and then my sister took us to Mall of America at 12:45, or we left my house, and we had to stop at Walmart and the bank, and then after that we drove and we listened to my iPod, which had 24/7 on it, the deluxe version. And then when we got there, it was like 1:45, and we went to we parked by Best Buy, and then we went in and we asked the Best Buy greeter if there was any wristbands left, and then he's like, "I think so. I'm not quite sure. Go ask the cashier." So we went to the cashier, and I noticed a basket right by him, and it had CDs and wristbands. So I was like, "Okay, let's do it." So I bought two CDs, one for me and one for my friend Caitlin. And then see, after that we got the CDs, both deluxe. And then as we were leaving, my sister put our wristbands on, and then we got online, and it was huge. And so we got in line, and then they adjusted everybody, and we got in line. And then when we were paying for the CDs, I was gonna give them my money, but my hand was like shaking. So my sister ripped the money out of my hand, and she's like, "Leslie, calm down," and all this. And I was speechless, and like my legs were shaking. So after that, we sat down and we started listening to my iPod again. And we were just listening to 24/7. And then we stopped, and I was like taking pictures with my camera and all this stuff. And then they were late. They were supposed to be here at 4, but they came at 4:45 or 4:30, and they were late because they were playing musical chairs. Kendall won. So, but it was worth the wait. So we got past like bag check, I guess you could say, and then as we started moving up, there's this big like curve like for the line, and it was like enough space where like 3 groups can fit in. And then I think Kendall was first, and he's like, "Sorry we couldn't get to everybody, but we gotta go." And then Carlos is like, and they're all saying we're sorry. And then I fell for it, because after that they're like, "No, I'm just kidding. We're just kidding, guys. We gotta take a bathroom break." So, and I guess Kendall noticed a girl's face, like, looked shocked and depressed or sad or something. And then she's like, he was like, "You should have seen your face." And it was just like, oh. And then the way they came down was the way the bathrooms were. So I told my friend Caitlin, "Let's go stand over there." So they started leaving, and they come down, and we're like yelling their names. Kendall comes, and he has like a whole bunch of sunglasses that they were giving out. And then, so he didn't touch any hands. And then Carlos comes. I think he stopped right before me. Then Logan comes. We're all yelling and screaming. He touches my hand, and then James comes, touches his hand, then he touches mine again. Or he touches mine. So I was like in shock that happened. And I was just like shocked, and I was like, "Oh my god, that did not just happen. I can't believe this is gonna happen." Then they come back, and then Kendall's waving. Carlos and Logan comes first when they were done, and he touches hands after mine. And then Kendall comes, he was waving at people. And then he got back on the stage and was throwing more sunglasses. And then Carlos comes, touches hands after mine, and then James comes, and he's touching hands, and then he touched mine. So I was like, "Oh my god, it happened again." And as we were in line, I pulled out these drawings that I made, because I was like, I'll take them, because you don't know what could happen. And then my sister noticed, and she's like, "What are those?" And I was like, "They're gifts." And she just gives me like this weird look, and I was just like smiling. And I was like, "Hey," and you never know, this was worth it. So when we got to like the front of the line, it was a stage, little room for like security guards, a gate, and then the line. When we were in the corner of like the front of the line, I guess you could say, no was playing, and I was just like swimming back and forth, kind of like that and stuff like that. And I guess Carlos saw me, and then he started doing it. So right away, I just turned to my friend, to Kayla, and I was just like, that did not happen. I was banging my head on her arm, and I was like, that did not just happen. I can't believe that happened. Because we were like eye to eye and all this. And then we move, the line moves, and then we're on the stage. And then the order was James, Logan, Kendall, Carlos. So I put in my driends in that order. And then he's like, hi, and I went hi, and I'm like, this is for you, and it was the drawings, and then he's like looking at him like, that's so cool, thank you. And then he signs, gives me high fives, and he's like, you know what, here, have this. And it was a silly band, the hamburger silly band. So I was just like, oh, thank you. And then I was like, inside I was like, holy cow. And then, oh yeah, this is what the wristbands look like. And so I moved to Logan, and I'm like, he's like, hey, and I'm like, hi. I gave him a high five, and I was like, this is for you. He's like, wow, these are a lot. And I was like, yeah, I've had them since like 2011, because like, I don't know, I was just bored drawing them, and all it was their names in like either 3D or like really cool. And my sister was behind me taking pictures, even though we weren't allowed to, but she still was. So she like chuckles, and I turned around, and I'm like, I like shushed her, and then I turned back, and then he signed it, and then move on to Kendall. Or no, sorry, but when I left, when I gave James the Giants, like, oh, thank you, darling. And I was like, that made my mouth drop even more. So, okay, back to Kendall. So I got to Kendall, and I was like, hey, and I'm like, hi, and I was covering my mouth with the drawings because I was like nervous. And then I was like, here, these are for you. And he was like, oh, thanks. I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, there's stuff for Dustin in there too. And he's like, yeah, Dustin? And I was like, yeah. And then he sends me like, oh, thank you, baby. And I was just like, oh my god. And so I gave him a high five, and then I moved on to Carlos. Carlos signs it, and I was like, this is for you. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And then he gave me a high five, and then that was it. And then I walked off the stage, and like, they were giving the sunglasses away. They just say Malls America on them, and I was just like, I got that. And then they were also giving like cleaners for your phone. And so like after I got that, I was like shaking, my hand was like shaky, and I had my booklet, and then I was just like, James just called me darling. James just called me darling. And then as we were leaving the place, my sister was like, did Kendall say thanks, Leslie, or thanks, baby? And I was like, he said thanks, baby. And I was just like, oh my god, that did not just happen. And so I was just like shaking and like in shock. My whole ride home, I was like replaying it in my head. And so when I got done, I noticed Carlos' smiley face and Kendall's heart, and then he was also he showed his skull tattoo, and I'm bummed I didn't get the picture, but he showed it to a fan when we were in the front of the line. And then we were driving home, my sister asked to see my CD, and he's like, Logan gave you a heart too, and I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, right there. So they like, I was just like, oh my god, and I was just like in shock. I didn't think that would happen, but it's gonna sound really weird, but meeting BTR was on my bucket list. So I was like, okay, I didn't realize that till like 2 days later, and I still gotta check it off. I was like, oh my god, I get to check it off now. So yeah, that's my story. like, subscribe, comment. Bye.